So, what have we learned so far? Well, we've learned about basic input and output, or I/O, a very important concept in programming. So to do that, we learned about puts, gets, and print. We've also learned about strings. So a string is just literally a string of characters. For example, hello inside the double quotes. We've also learned about variables. So a variable holds a value in memory for later use. For example, here we're assigning a string called bar to a variable called foo. And finally, we've learned about interpolation. And that is our ability to insert a variable into a string. Let's learn a little bit more about strings. Strings can be expressed using double quotes, as we've seen so far. They can also be expressed using a single quote. So what's the difference? Well, firstly, single quotes do not interpolate. So as you can see here in the first example, I have a string defined with a single quote. I'm trying to interpolate the variable name inside the string. But of course, if I was to print that out, I wouldn't get an interpolation. On the other hand, if I was to create my string using double quotes and then insert the pound symbol and the variable name, if I was to print that string out, I would in fact get interpolation. So why would we want to use single quotes at all? Well, what happens if we want to print an actual quotation? As you can see here, I'm a big Simpsons fan, so you'll see Homer appear quite often in my episodes. But let's look at the example. So puts, it's pronounced learned, and the word learned in this case is in double quotes. But of course, if I was to use double quotes as the string, as well as inside the string, then I'm going to get a syntax error. So in this case, I have to use a single quote outside the string that I'm creating, and the quotes around learned are actually part of the string. Okay, so what happens if we need quotes and interpolation inside our string? Well, in this case, we have to use escape characters. So an escape character is just a backslash before any other character that would be normally printed out differently. Let's have a look. So now you can do something like this. It's pronounced learned inside double quotes now. So see how I've defined the string using double quotes at the left end and the right end. And inside, I've also got quotes around the word learned. But in order for those quotes to be a part of the string, I need to use the escape character. So that means that Ruby doesn't interpret those quotes as it normally would. Instead, they become part of the parent string. And then at the end, I've used my interpolation of the variable name to include it in my string. So I have another exercise for you. Exercise 2.1. I'd like you to take a few moments to familiarize yourself with the different types of strings and escape characters. Remember, you can use puts and print to try these things out on the screen.